Hello and welcome to Olsem Wanem. In this episode, we feature the Minimum Wage Board and people's views on the national minimum wage. Citizens face the everyday challenges of making ends meet financially, but the ends never seem to meet at all.
I'm 230 law fortnight. So me looking was 230 and me no enough lo 2 weeks blow me.
One plus day company work him how much million lo you na me. We all work long underpay him you me.
So almost something great blow. So 229 na miss kiri mo sa town lo 2 months lo. Work violent lo, mipla work lang. Because after lo time you sim baby bail mo plenty deduction in chala. So what mipla tingin lang mo sa mipla like mo increase him change him sa rate lo 229 go anta blow lo.
Me mama we mi stop lo boroko lo plenty years. Me stop lo boroko lo plenty years. The me roll one kind for man blow me stop na bot lo drain na. Me plus silvi get up no come lo something we umasa luksa lo ne me plus stop. O begin Mary one time round ko kam collect the more rubbish again tin container la salim round find money round. No feeding more picking blow me plus.
For many people, life is becoming tougher and tougher each day financially. There is difficulty in feeding a family even with 2 members of the family in the workforce. Papua New Guinea has a nationwide minimum wage for its workers. Minimum wage is the lowest amount of money a worker can be legally paid for his or her work. The minimum wage in Papua New Guinea is set by a government body known as the Minimum Wages Board. Over the years, the minimum wage in Papua New Guinea has experienced reforms and changes. Papua New Guinea's minimum wage was last reviewed in 2008 and was handed down in 2009. The national wage rate was then set at Tukina 29 per hour, marking a rise of 146%. Since then, the national minimum wage has remained untouched for the last 6 years. In October last year, 2013, a newly appointed board began a series of public hearings with a mission to finalize its findings and pass them on to the National Executive Council in January 2014.
The Minimum Wage Board was established under the Industrial Relations Act of 1962, Section 10 to 17, whose specific function is to set up a new wage determination for the country. The last board established in 2008 set the minimum wage at 2.29 toya per hour. This has never been reviewed for the past 3 years, but a new board has now been established with the undertaking to review and determine a new national minimum wage. Minister for Labour and Industrial Relations, Mark Maipakai, challenged the new board to deliver on their mandated duty.
This determination is for those little people, grassroots, plantation workers, general cleaners, gardeners, or whatever category of workforce we have. This is for them to set their rate for how much they should be paid.
He says it is long overdue and ordinary workers have been denied their rights to a new wage determination. The new board is made up of individuals from a cross-section of the society. Their chairperson, Beverly Doiwa, says the new board is ready to carry out public hearings throughout the country, beginning in Mendi on Monday next week.
There's really only 2 specific terms of reference that the board is going to be looking at, and that is to establishing, reviewing the 2008 minimum wages board determination and establishing a new national minimum wage, and also reviewing the appropriateness of other allowances. And with other allowances like heavy duty allowance, tool allowances, that will also be subject to the board's review. And interested persons, parties should come before the board and tell the board what they feel the board should do about the other allowances.
A funding of 1.2 million kina was given to the board by the national government to carry out this important task within a period of 3 months. Stakeholders, more particularly industrial leaders, employee and employer organizations, are urged to attend and present their submissions to the Minimum Wage Board. Provincial administrators are expected to support and facilitate the board hearings in their respective provinces to avoid unnecessary delays and disruption.
The 2013 board will review and determine the appropriateness of the current method and conditions for wages, and where appropriate, determine a new national minimum wage. Review and determine the appropriateness or otherwise of all allowances, including heavy duty, rural hardship, housing, industry and risk. Finalize its findings within 3 months of the start of the hearings and report to the NEC, and seek extension from the NEC if need arises.
Minimum wages.
In recent personal interview with Olsem Wanem, the chairperson of the Minimum Wage Board, Beverly Doiwa, stated that the board is currently reviewing the minimum wage and will present it for public hearing in April this year.
There are occupational-based unions for teachers, police and nurses. The Public Employees Association represents 1/3 of the public sector, while most of the unions within the private sector are associated with Trade Unions Congress. Issues relating to minimum wage are often debated through these unions. In December 2013, the Papua New Guinea Trade Union Congress stated that it will present a submission in 2014 to the Minimum Wage Board to improve their current minimum wage.
The economy of Papua New Guinea is going through one of the longest periods of growth since independence, and in recent years has been one of the fastest growing economies in Asia and the Pacific. Despite this boom, the living standards of minimum wage workers have gone backwards for most of the last 2 decades, while profits have taken an ever-increasing share of national income. TUC General Secretary John Pasca said between 1994 and 2011, the total value of profits increased by 9 times compared with the doubling of the total paid in wages. This means that 8.2 billion kina went from wage earners to those who gain from business dividends and directors' fees.
So for 16 years, since 1992, there was no wage increase, no meaningful wage increase applied across for minimum wage earners. And this impacted negatively on a lot of sectors, including the fact that
Pascal says the TUC's submission shows that it is quite impossible for minimum wage workers to live off the current wage of 606 kina per week in 2013. This is almost 6 times the minimum wage. Even with 2 people working full-time, a household of 2 adults and 3 children cannot support themselves solely from the minimum wage.
All right. So this is a huge problem and something that we need to correct in this country. And the Minimum Wages Board offers us that opportunity to revisit and to review some of the policies, many of which have failed us miserably in Papua New Guinea, and to restore normalcy and to come back to the drawing board.
Meanwhile, Mr. Pascal says minimum wage earners are surviving by subsidizing employers by meeting part of their own living costs through growing their own food, help from relatives, selling food or betel nut, including sex work.
General Secretary of Employees Association Guys Kula stated that negotiations for wage increase started in July 2013. The association initially wanted a 14% increase in wage. However, this was rejected by the government. It later proposed a 9% increase, but this was also rejected. According to Mr. Kula, the government stated that it did not have the ability to enable a wage increase of 14% and has only allowed for a 7.5% increase in 2014. The Public Employees Association has over 12,000 members. It is by law that employees have the right to form and join labour unions. However, these unions must be registered by the Department of Industrial Relations. A union that is not registered does not have a legal standing with the Department of Labour and Employment or before the courts. Unions in the private and public sector are more organised than some other sectors, such as agriculture, which is rural-based and remains separated. On another note, when the new minimum wages were introduced in 2009, the board had exempted the agriculture industry from the new minimum wages, claiming its profitability is determined by prices of commodities. But unions not only exist for private, public and agriculture sectors. As the saying goes, there are two sides to a coin. There is also the existence of employers' unions that speak on behalf of employers. One is the Papua New Guinea Employers Federation.
All right. The Federation's engagement in the minimum wages is based on its on the laws that created the setting up of the wages board. The law asks for employers and workers to nominate representatives to the wages board, and so we are called on to nominate people to sit on the board. So for the 2013 minimum wages board, I was nominated to sit and represent the federation and also represent employers in the private sector.
Employers also have to live up to the challenge of running their organizations and meeting their employees' needs.
Arguments from the union is that they want a living wage, meaning a wage that can sustain a family of 4, husband, wife, and 2 children, enough money to pay for them to survive a week or a fortnight. From the employers, what we are saying is we want a protection wage, a wage that no one should be paid under. We all should be paid above it. And minimum wage also ensures any person that's entering the workforce, he's not paid below that rate. So if we compare persons who come out from school, they have very limited skills, experience and exposure. When they come to our workplace, they must know that they are protected by the setting of a minimum wage, that they are not abused, they're not poorly paid, they're paid at a rate that the government has allowed for them to be paid. Problems with a number of demands from workers, especially who constantly want an increase, is that it's true, cost of living it's actually gone up, but at the same time, the employers are also paying a lot to do business. And in Papua New Guinea, for any business or any employer that wants to do business, it's very expensive. We are paying too much for simple things like rent, fuel, and so on. So if employers are paying for all of this, then they also have the workers to consider and pay. And if we keep pushing the minimum wage too high up, we're going to chase good businesses away. They can't afford to continue working here.
With Olsem Wanem, increase in the prices of goods and services have become a serious concern for many people. Governor for Oro and former Customs Commissioner has also raised serious concerns on payment of tax from homegrown businesses.
in Christian law, said the Vietnam tax something so.
But we are paying tax every single item, every day we are paying. No. Nagdapat may kumain sa tax belum. Or company small tax rebates belum ya. Na mi belum kana gaya mi belum semua so. Are we going to pay tax rebate? They don't know us. We are continuously paying tax. Tax for nothing. You don't make understanding.
Now I'm hard to mas. Loris laka in city Olsem now must be. Because must be. And mi plan need him bus fare lo move. Kaikalo mi plan kaikalo em school fee blo pikinini. Karem family sick by karem mi gola house sick. And plant is something where emi hard to mas Olsem na. All top changes work lo kam lo Papua New Guinea. Planti man changes work lo kam tachimol yeah. That's on mi plan no look save Loris la changes yet. Mi plan hare mi plan looking lo newspaper Olsem change work lo kam.
The current minimum wage of 2 kina 29 toya has provided a stable foundation for investors and industries to forecast their labor costs. However, it has not complemented with Papua New Guinea's inflation. Inflation has averaged 6.4% in 2009. In 2011, it peaked at 8.6%. In 2012, it dropped to 2.2%, and in 2013, the inflation rate was at 5.5%.
In the cities, in the rural areas, it's just becoming more and more costly. Your rent, the cost of goods, it is not in correspondence to the increase in your income. So you're earning the same income, and that increase is very slow. But the increase in cost of living is quite high and very fast. It's rapidly occurring. So most Papua New Guineans don't have savings, I mean, if you review the Papua New Guinean's income, it is not enough for him to have savings. He's just living day by day. So how do we assist those people? We've got to create opportunities. We've also got to adjust the taxation regime so that this so-called economic growth that we're always hearing about can benefit everybody, especially Papua New Guineans.
In 2013, Governor for Oro and former Customs Commissioner Gary Jufa raised issues regarding the government giving tax exemptions to multi-million kina companies. He strongly stated that small businesses should be the ones with tax exemptions. Mr. Jufa indicated that certain developers take tax holidays, while ordinary Papua New Guineans continue to be highly taxed. In a recent interview with Olsem Wanem, Mr. Jufa reaffirmed his stand.
Now, I believe that the taxes imposed on Papua New Guineans should be reduced, that tax incentives should be given to small Papua New Guinean enterprises and companies, and that large companies that have enjoyed taxation exemption for lengthy periods of time, they should be reviewed. The effort to register taxpayers is just simply not there. We should make it a requirement that every foreigner and every foreign company that enters Papua New Guinea for whatever reason is issued a tax code the moment they arrive in the country. And we have the technology available to do that. We're just simply not making that effort.
Mr. Jufa also raised serious concerns on the taxation of retirement allowances. He said that the tax on retirement allowances should be done away with.
Papua New Guineans work, let's say you work an average 20 to 30 years, and then you retire, you resign. And a large chunk of that is taken away by the tax office. In some instances, they take about 30%. It sometimes goes down to as little as 14%. But that's still a lot of money. I'm proposing to the Tax Review Committee that there should be absolutely no tax on retirement or retrenchment benefits, so that if a Papua New Guinean has worked and earned, a salary that has a portion of which has been set aside for his pension or for his retrenchment, he should not pay any tax on that.
Olsem Wanem, we have looked at the minimum wage, unions, and issues surrounding taxation. We now take a look at how you can be a member of a union, as well as where you can seek assistance regarding your working conditions. We'll also take a look at minimum wage rates from other countries.
Membership is open to individual employers or companies or larger institutions. They can be recommended to the Federation to join us, or they can come voluntarily and join our Federation. They pay a membership fee, and the fee is renewed annually. So they remain our financial members until such time that they decide to resign or withdraw. But they remain our members for the duration of the membership period.
For those who are not part of any union and are encountering problems in working conditions, it is better to seek assistance from the Labour Department.
It's important to be part of an organization like the Employers Federation, because the world of work is changing. People are becoming more aware of their rights, and employers can argue their own cases, but collectively as a group, we can do more for them. We can act as the middle person in terms of taking up the issues with the courts, take up the issues with the Department of Labor in terms of labor and employment, and collectively as a group of employers with the Federation, we discuss and we lobby for our own employer interest in terms of the workplace issues.
According to Ms. Willie, monitoring employer and employee working conditions in Papua New Guinea is also a challenge.
Papua New Guinea, in terms of monitoring and enforcement or implementation of laws or anything, we fall back on that. Our monitoring is almost non-existent. I say this in light of the minimum wage determination of 2008. Their Labor Department officers have not gone out to find out if employers are paying the Tukina 29. That's one. We also have problems with employers who don't do the right thing for the employee. So it's a big issue in terms of monitoring and watching what people are doing. There are a lot of business. There are some employers who don't pay the minimum wage, who don't look after their workers well, who terminate the workers. You work for me 3 weeks and terminate you before the end of the month, and then start you again and terminate you. That's, in my view, completely unfair to the employee. He deserves a job, and he needs to know that there is job security, not come and work and get sacked and come back the following week. That's not good.
For those who are paid below the minimum wage or are unfairly dismissed from their work in any way should report the matter and seek assistance from labour offices that are located across the country, as advised by the chairperson of the Minimum Wage Board. While there are signs that Papua New Guinea may experience an increase in its national minimum wage rate this year, let's take a look at minimum wage rates in other 5 developed countries against 5 developing countries. France, $10.71 per hour. Australia, $10.63 per hour. The Netherlands, $9.63 per hour. United Kingdom, $8.76 per hour. United States, $7.25 per hour. Vanuatu, $2.86 per hour. Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, 81 cents per hour. El Salvador, 81 cents per hour. And Bangladesh, 19 cents per hour. For the sake of this minimum wages per hour comparison, these amounts are in US dollars. Some countries may have very complicated minimum wage systems. For example, India has more than 1,200 minimum wage rates.
And that concludes this edition of Olsem Wanem. We'd like to thank all those involved. Be sure to keep up to date with our MTV program Business PNG as they reveal the latest results of the national minimum wage rate in the weeks to come. Next week on Olsem Wanem, we bring you the PNG Fire Service as we join the fire service men and women who share awareness, demonstrations, and safety tips. We hope you will join us same time next week. Until then, enjoy the rest of your viewing on your #1 station, MTV.